Like every other major city in the U.S., Columbia has been dealing with a rise in gun violence. As the murder rate continues to rise, law enforcement agencies across South Carolina are struggling to find a solution. One of the more brazen acts of recent violence took place on the Saturday before Easter, when several individuals exchanged gunfire in the middle of a crowded shopping mall. At the time of recording this video, there have been 47 people shot in Richland County. 12 of them have died. If this number continues to trend in the same direction, we can expect to see at least 4 more shootings and 2 deaths by the end of May. In the midst of this seemingly endless violence, I sat down with Dr. A.V. Strong, community activist, youth advocate, and founder of Project Gang Out, to get some perspective on the cause and hopefully a solution on how to end this viral trend of violence. A.V., how you doing this afternoon?
Hey, Mike, I'm fine, man. Thank you, brother, for asking.
Man, appreciate it. Thank you for taking time to sit down with me. Wanted to take this opportunity just to get your thoughts, some feedback, and kind of pick your mind. We in South Carolina in general, but especially here in Columbia, we've been dealing with a epidemic, the pandemic, and now we have an endemic of gun violence, and it doesn't seem like it's stopping. It doesn't seem like it's slowing down, and it's tearing our communities apart, and worst of all, it's claiming the lives of our children in our community. And you've been a long time advocate of the community. You've led a nonprofit organization called Gang Out before. You've ran for sheriff. You've been an outspoken advocate for safer communities. So I wanted to take this opportunity and sit down with you and get some idea, just try to wrap my mind around. Do you have an idea of what's causing the level of violence that we see in our communities?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And that's a very powerful question. That's probably don't have, well, it probably has a lot of answers to it. One of the answers is that, man, we got a broken village. The village is broken. And so there's no village raising children anymore. And so, unfortunately, I know in my line of work, the majority of the young people that I deal with on a one-on-one basis are single parent homes, you know, and most of them are mothers trying to raise young men. And not saying that's the only problem or that's the biggest of the problem, but when you have no one teaching our young men how to conduct themselves in our community, that causes a problem, you know, because they're left to chance or to the street to raise them. And right now, the way they're being raised are by everybody except those folk who are given positive influences. Like, for instance, now, you know, and I don't knock nobody for trying to make a living in this world, especially in America. But when you have people like our artists, like the Snoop Dogg's and those folk who goes on Super Bowl halftime show and does a crip walk, you know, in front of 80,000 people in the Super Bowl all around the world, that helps feed into our young people. They see that and they know what that means. So now they want to become gangsters and want to become rappers, but it's all negative. You know, there's no positive message in that. When I'm telling you, go ahead and do the crip walk. You know, these are just some of the problems.
You ran for sheriff a while ago. I think it was about
2020.
And you had a platform about cleaning up our neighborhoods and taking back the communities from the gangs. What compelled you to run when you did?
Well, you know, I'm a long-time member of this community. I'm not originally from this community, but been living in this community for over 30 years. And what I've seen is the definition of insanity. When we continue to do the same thing over and over again, expect something different to happen, and it's not going to work that way. You know, so I ran for sheriff really just to come up with some fresh ideas. You know, we got to do more than just lock the kids up, lock them up. We got to get ahead of the game and do some preventative measures. And that's what I want to do. I want to start with some outreach programs, such as a gang out program. And there's other people doing great work in the community that we could team up with. And we got to stop trying to work as standalone entities and start working together to clean up the community. Because everybody can bring a part of the solution. And if you bring your part, I bring my part, and we can have a whole pie sooner or later. So I think it's going to be all of us working together.
Just recently, we had right before Easter, Easter Sunday, we had a shooting in out of Columbiana Mall. The young men involved, as far as we know now, mostly all of them were African Americans shooting at other young black men of color. Just talking to you in passing, I know your phone was ringing off the hook. Could you tell me about some of those conversations?
Yeah, people. I was in Georgia when that particular thing happened, visiting my eldest daughter, and sitting in a theater. My phone began to ring, and when I stepped out to answer, people were telling me they were just involved and running for their lives, and because there's a shootout at the mall. When you look at the whole totality of the situation, Mike, for people to be that brazen, to go to a mall carrying a gun in broad daylight and begin to shoot where there's innocent people, tells me, right, that there's some serious problems in our community. I was told that, and I don't know for sure, that some of it may have been gang related. I'm not sure, but I know one thing that the gang does is they will shoot indiscriminately. And don't care who's in the way. They call it the collateral damage, when somebody else is hurt because of their violent behavior. But that bothered me to the degree that it was almost like nobody really had that much outrage because of it. I didn't hear a lot of the outrage. I heard people that were involved were upset, but the rest of the community, my thing is, if we can organize for everything else, why we can't organize against this violence? Why we can't stand up against this violence, man? As a community, we all stand together.
Well, what are your thoughts on getting rid of how do you address this situation? When I look at it, it's and look at the news and check social media, it's literally almost a shooting every day. Literally.
True.
Clearly, locking people up is not the problem, because clearly they're not. If they're going to open fire in a mall with all of these cameras around today, going to jail is not a real big fear. So how do you address this?
Well, number one, most people who go to jail, they earn street cred while they go to jail. So to a lot of these young men and women that committing these crimes, it's a badge of honor. And then I hear some of them say, well, a lot of my homies are already locked up, so I'm just going to go join them, Mark, Mike, I'm sorry. Mike, it's a matter of the heart to me. We got to recapture the young people's heart to be able to guide them in different directions. Because right now, this is heartless behavior that's taking place. It's no heart in it. It's hard to not injure something that you don't care about, But if you cared about that, if we find something in your heart that you care about, then you won't be so quick to injure it or to hurt it in any kind of way. So I think it's a matter of the heart. We got to recapture the hearts of our young people.
And now, Avi, I hate to bring this to your doorstep. I know you had Operation Gang Out before. That closed down. You retired. You're now retired. And I hate to lay this at your footsteps, but being an ex-military man, you understand the burden of leadership. What are you doing? What are you going to do?
Well, after much consideration, Mike, and much tossing and turning at night, and answering many phone calls, I've decided to reinitiate the Gang Out program. Well, what this program simply is going to do is provide. Here's what I'm tired of. I'm tired of being able, when parents call me to say, they ask the question, is there anywhere I can send my child? He's on his way to the gangs, or he's troubled. and I said, ma'am, I don't know any place, or sir, I don't know any place, that is no longer going to be in my vocabulary, because when gang out comes back, it will be a place for a person to bring their child, a young person, girl or boy, to be mentored, to be mentored. And hopefully, we can do some critical thinking situations where before they do stuff, they'll think about what they're doing. So right now, I think people are just doing things on a whim. They're not thinking about the consequences. But when gang out, we help you to understand consequences. You're still in charge of your behavior, but there's consequences you need to consider. And that's part of the mentoring program.
When gang out was active before, what were some of the things you guys were doing out in the community?
Oh man, we did many things. The young men and women in the program, of course, they're improved in their school work and report cards. Some of them went from flunking to honor roll students. We do where we go into the community and we look at the physical conditions of the communities. Whether it be lawn services or whether it be fixing someone's house, the elderly and the young people we participate in cleaning the community up in those ways. So there's a lot of things to do. There's never a one silver bullet to answer all the questions, but you got to do something. To me, like doing nothing is not an option.
Do you think gang out was about 10 years ago?
11 years.
11 years ago, over a decade.
Yeah.
Do you think you can reach this generation?
Well, I'm going to use this generation to reach their generation. I've got young men and women who went through the gang out program at the age of 14, 15 years old. They're now in their 30s. And they've already reached out to me and said, we want to help us understand how to do this, and we'll do it. So I'm gonna be as an advisor to this generation to reach their generation. That's what I'm gonna do.
You guys, before you guys had to close your door, it was due to funding.
Right.
So going in, what can the community do? What do you need from the community to help you be successful this go around?
Well, of course, it's everybody shouldering the weight. Working together. Whether it be finance, whether it be volunteer, whether it be directing parents or having the information that you can give to a parent that may not know about the program, show them where we're at and how to get in touch with us. So this is going to be a community project like it wasn't before, but this time I think the need is extremely great. And when you said something about retirement, and now I thought I could. Until I live in this community and I got grandkids, and kids in this community, and Lord knows I don't want anything negative to happen to them, and nobody's kid, including mine, So that's why I dust off my sleeves and roll them back up and ready to go back to work.
Okay. What if everybody lives busy lives? I know you said funding and volunteer. If community members don't have the time, the volunteer, and don't have funds, are you looking for any type of in-kind donation, places to meet,
Absolutely.
supplies, anything like that?
Absolutely, Mike. I mean, if they, I really reach out to everybody in the community that can add anything positive to the group. I talk to our pastors who got life centers. Let's open up these life centers and let's let these young men and women come in. And it don't have to be one area; it could be many areas in the city, because this virus is all over the city. The virus of violence is everywhere. It's not in one particular corner. It's all over the state. So I think it's time for everybody that can add some kind of positive influence to the situation. Would help everything out. Would help everybody out.
Well, Evie, thank you for taking time to sit down with me. Looking forward to you bringing gang out back. It's much needed. I will be following up with you to see how that's going and see how we can do. But for those who want to reach out to you, how would they do that?
Well, of course, we're going to have a website back up shortly, but right now you can call me directly AV Strong 803-200-7259. And Mike, I want to thank you, man, for spotlighting this issue because it's one thing to have it and not do nothing about it. Another thing to have an issue and then we're trying to do something about it. And I think the first thing of really addressing the problem is giving out the information. So I appreciate you giving out that information, Mike. Thank you so much, brother.
I appreciate you. Thanks for taking the time to sit down with me.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.